Welcome back, family. Hey. If you're new here, I'm Brittany. Hey, your manifesting mentor. I'm not a coach, I'm not a guru, but I'm a woman who walks the walk and shares what works. I've been reading Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, chapter by chapter, and going live each week to discuss it and have personal reflections. And now we're in the final chapter, chapter 14. It's called Case Studies. It could happen to you. This is the second story of this chapter, and each part is a real life testimony of what's possible when you do this work, when you return to the heart, and when you open yourself up to the divine that's within you. So this particular story is titled Janet, You Are Mine. And it's about a woman named Janet who had been stuck in survival mode, living in fear, uncertainty, and emotional overwhelm for decades. It says that she went to a Dr. Joe Dispenza workshop and had a meditation where she experienced a profound inner shift. And she heard the words, You Are Mine. And we're going to find out what she interpreted these words to mean. But in essence, the story is something that's going to remind you, as so many of us who are still looking outside of ourselves for someone to choose us, that when we go deep enough, we remember that we're already chosen. So let's get into it. Also, I'm going to go over a second story in this section as well called Connected Beyond Time and Space by Love. And it's about two friends in two different locations through heart coherence who get to experience what divine love is all about. But without spoiling it, let's get into it. Janet hears You Are Mine. While Janet occasionally meditated, it was never a regular habit. Yet one afternoon, 25 years ago, during a meditation, she had what she calls a spontaneous experience. With her eyes closed, she was suddenly in the presence of an incredibly bright light, yet the light had a softness that didn't hurt her eyes. She described it as the purest, most intense, perfect love she had ever experienced. For the next 25 years, she prayed, meditated, and did everything else she could to try to recreate that transcendental experience. So, for people who are just starting to meditate and they want results instantaneously, this woman has been meditating for 25 years. And it didn't say that she didn't get any changes in her life, but it just goes to show that it's just about being consistent with a practice. Practice makes mastery. If you follow me from TikTok, you know I always say that. Anyways, in the spring of 2015, Janet attended an advanced workshop in Carefree, Arizona. She I can't talk. She was in a state of deep depression and exhaustion, unable to see any solutions to the problems in her life. Yet she was determined to have a healing or breakthrough. Above all else, she was excited to be with more than 500 people united in the belief that they were greater than their physical bodies. This is that community we talk about. For the duration of the workshop, Janet went after the mystical with a level of intensity that was greater than her depression. During the pineal gland meditation, she was sitting in a lotus position and resting her loving intention in the space of her pineal gland. All of a sudden, the gland activated, and a brilliant white light coming from inside her head illuminated her pineal gland. It was the same light she had experienced 25 years earlier. The light came into the space of my pineal gland and illuminated all the crystals in the little cave of that tiny gland, she later explained. The light continued to illuminate my entire being down to the cellular level. My spine then straightened, my head went back, and I just embraced it. I just let it happen. I was simultaneously in ecstasy, bliss, gratitude, and love. Next, an inverted triangle of light came down from above her through the top of her head. She knew this triangle was the presence of a loving intelligence. The point of the inverted triangle joined the peak of her pineal gland, forming a double geometric shape. The intense frequency of the coherent light was carrying a message for Janet. The light kept saying to Janet over and over, You are mine, you are mine, which she took to mean, I love you more than anything else in the world. Please enter and take charge of my life, Janet responded. And as she surrendered to it, she started to experience a download of information coming through the top of her head in the form of a brilliant light. The light was threaded with strands that looked like luminous cobalt blue pearls. The light moved slowly and descended through her entire body. This energy was the result of a reverse torus field, the field that moves in the opposite direction of the upward field created during the breath. Y'all remember the breath in chapter, I think it was 11, the pineal gland meditation with the breath? Yeah. The inner experience was so, I'm sorry, the breath. And it was the energy from the unified field from beyond the visible light spectrum and beyond our senses. The inner experience was so real that it rewired her brain and sent a new emotional, energetic signal to her body. And in an instant, her past was washed away. The download of frequency of coherence and wholeness gave her body a biological upgrade. By the same time she left the workshop, her depression and her exhaustion were completely gone. This ecstatic experience, she insisted, has changed my life forever. And that was a beautiful example of how just one moment of wholeness experienced in any of these meditations, whether it's a transcendental experience or just the peace that you feel from your daily practice, is enough to wash away whatever trauma you experience. And I think that's partly why Dr. Joe Dispenza, I remember someone asked him about, remembering moments of trauma and going to therapy. And Dr. Joe was like, when you do this work, and it's no knock against therapy, but therapy is a replaying of the same story. And we know what that does to our nervous system. But he was like, when you do this work, just one moment could transform everything, where you don't ever have to tell that story again because you've transcended it. And he said that when you no longer have the emotional charge, it becomes wisdom. So when you're not emotionally triggered by something that happened to you in your past, now you use it as wisdom, and it almost feels like a separate person, like someone else lived that experience, someone else lived that life, which is exactly what you want, especially if it's really wreaked havoc in your day-to-day life and who you think you are and your self-esteem, things like that. And that's why I like this work, because I've been to therapy. I respect it, but at the same time I also understand that some people be in therapy their whole life and never make any changes because they don't change their energy and they keep telling the same stories. Anyways, next section, connected beyond time and space by love. During a Project Coherence meditation broadcast from Lake Garda, Italy, participants from all over the world joined us in the belief that we are more than just matter, bodies, and particles, and that consciousness influences matter and the world. During the meditation, Sasha was in New Jersey visualizing bringing the earth into her heart. This is one of the friends named Sasha in New Jersey. We went to the heart. She said, when we went to the heart, I felt all those shoots and leaves growing from my heart center and through my body. She told me there were branches, leaves, and blossoms coming out of my arms, fingers, ears, as well as white blossoms all over my face. I had literally become the surface of the earth garden. So she became a garden in her meditation. Interesting, because follow along. As soon as the meditation was over, Sasha looked down at her phone and saw that her best friend Heather had sent a picture from Ireland. While we had been doing the meditation, Heather had been walking through a garden. She happened to look down and saw moss growing on a rock in the shape of a heart. Heather took a picture of the moss with her heart of the moss with her phone and sent it to Sasha with a note that said, I saw this and had the overwhelming feeling of your presence. I love you. And so this is how, if this isn't proof that we are somehow connected in this unified field of oneness, I don't know what is. Because Sasha's way in New Jersey, or Sasha's way in New Jersey, meditating with Dr. Joe online, and she's seeing herself as being part of the earth, as a garden, blossoms coming out of her arms turning to branches, and all the things she described. And then her friend Heather is way in Ireland, walking in a freaking garden. And she sees moss on the ground and thinks of Heather. I'm sorry, thinks of Sasha, and sends her a text message of this moss and says, I had an overwhelming feeling of love and your presence, and I love you. Come on, y'all. But yeah, that's the end of part 2. And I hope you're enjoying this so far, because if you've missed any of my previous chapters, the full Becoming Supernatural playlist is linked in my bio here on YouTube as well as on TikTok. It's available to anyone who chooses to go inward and stay consistent with this work. So, in the next part, which is part 3, we're going to meet a woman named Donna who unexpectedly began helping souls cross over during her meditations. Yes, you read that right. We're going to get into her story. And these case studies are powerful reminders that the supernatural is not reserved for just the chosen few. It's for the many who choose to do this work. I'll see you in the next video.